You've heard it before. People are stupid. But have you ever stopped to wonder how much truth there is in this claim? What if the most painful, dangerous, and deadly forces in your life are not outside of you, but inside the people you trust, admire, and interact with every day? Imagine you're standing on the precipice of your goals, just a step away from greatness. But the people around you, those who seem to hold power, influence, and approval, are more like puppet masters, playing on your weaknesses. How often have you relied on others, only to find that their decisions are tainted by foolishness, jealousy, or self-interest? What if the very thing you fear most, failure, rejection, destruction, is not the work of your enemies, but a result of the ignorance and incompetence of those you believe should help you? Machiavelli, in his ruthless understanding of power, exposes a truth about human nature. Stupidity is a weapon. And it's not just the kind of stupidity you see in a few individuals. It's systemic, it's ingrained, it's everywhere. If you don't understand the dynamics of this stupidity, it will lead you to ruin, no matter how clever you think you are. In this world, your success will not just be about how smart you are, but how well you navigate the vast ocean of human ignorance that surrounds you. So, are you ready to open your eyes to the darkness, face the harsh truths, and become someone who can rise above the stupidity that holds most people back? If not now, when? There is a brutal truth that we often shy away from. Trusting others is a gamble, and in a world governed by ambition and deception, that gamble rarely pays off. Imagine for a moment your most trusted allies, your closest friends, the people you believe in. What happens when they fail you? What happens when they act out of their own self-interest, leaving you standing in the rubble of your own misplaced faith? Niccolo Machiavelli understood this truth all too well. To him, trust wasn't a virtue, but a weakness. It was the blind faith in others that led even the most capable to their downfall. Power, according to Machiavelli, does not belong to the man who trusts in the goodwill of others, but to the one who understands the limits of human loyalty and manipulates those limits to his advantage. You've felt it, haven't you? The sting of betrayal, the disappointment of having your trust exploited. Maybe it wasn't a grand betrayal, but a quiet, insidious one. A colleague who took credit for your work. A friend who promised support but remained absent when it mattered most. It's painful, yes, but the real question is, why does it hurt so much? It hurts because, deep down, we crave connection. We want to believe that others will have our backs, that they will act in our best interests, and that loyalty is something real and tangible. But in a world driven by power dynamics and personal ambition, loyalty is a rare commodity, often used as a weapon by those who can afford to wield it. The most dangerous illusion is believing that others are motivated by the same values you hold dear. The reality is simpler and far colder. People are driven by self-interest. And in the harsh game of life, self-interest always trumps loyalty. Those who rise to the top are not the ones who trust blindly. They are the ones who see others as tools to be used and discarded when necessary. This realization forces you to question your own assumptions about the people around you. How often have you trusted out of a need to feel secure, to avoid the discomfort of doubt? How many times has that trust been shattered? Machiavelli's advice is brutal but practical. Trust no one who is not useful to your immediate goals, and never forget that loyalty is a temporary alliance, not a permanent bond. This isn't to say that relationships aren't valuable, they are, but they must be viewed through a lens of strategic calculation, not emotional dependence. So, what do you do with this truth? Do you pull away from others entirely, retreating into solitude and self-reliance? Or do you take a more calculated approach, allowing trust to be something earned and constantly evaluated, rather than freely given? Understanding the stupidity of trust opens the door to a world where power can be seized not by the naive, but by the ruthless who refuse to be blindsided by their own need for connection. The world tells you that morality is your guiding star. It tells you that without it, you're nothing more than an animal, driven by base desires and chaotic impulses. But what if this moral compass is, in fact, the heaviest chain that binds you? What if, instead of guiding you, it's keeping you trapped in a cage of your own making? Machiavelli understood something that most people are afraid to admit. Morality is not an inherent virtue, but a tool for control. The great thinkers and leaders who shaped history didn't build their empires on pure goodness. They built them by manipulating the very principles that others held sacred. What if your moral standards, the values you cling to, are actually weapons used against you? Used by the weak to limit the strong, to hold back those who might otherwise rise to power. It's painful to admit, but think about it. How often has goodness held you back? How often has your commitment to doing what's right led to sacrifice without reward, to disappointment without reprieve? The world is not kind to those who insist on moral purity. It punishes them for their integrity, for their refusal to compromise. And in doing so, it rewards those who understand that power often requires a certain darkness, a willingness to break the rules when necessary. Leaders throughout history, those who rose above the rest, weren't the ones who adhered to traditional notions of right and wrong. Take Cesare Borgia, for example. He was ruthless, yet brilliantly strategic, willing to do whatever it took to gain and keep power, regardless of the moral cost. He manipulated his enemies, betrayed allies, and sacrificed his own ethics to secure his position. And yet, he is remembered as one of the most effective leaders of his time. This doesn't mean that morality has no place. But Machiavelli invites you to question its absolute value. Are your moral convictions really a guide to true success, or are they a form of self-delusion, a comfort, a crutch that prevents you from embracing the necessary ruthlessness required in the game of power? When you act in accordance with your morals, do you truly achieve the results you want? Or do you only feel good while others rise above you, using the very moral principles you cling to as tools of their own dominance? The tension here is deep. The world demands morality from you, but power is often seized by those willing to sacrifice it. Good intentions can often lead to self-sabotage, an unwillingness to make the hard, pragmatic decisions that will allow you to thrive. So, ask yourself, is morality a shield or a sword? Is it a hindrance or the key to true greatness? There's a truth that lies at the very heart of power, and it's one that few dare to admit. How others see you matters far more than who you truly are. In a world governed by appearances, perception often outweighs reality. To rise above the crowd, to be feared, respected, or desired, you must first control the narrative that others tell about you. What others think of you is not just a reflection, it is the reality they will treat as truth. Machiavelli understood this fundamental truth. In his world, the perception of power often held more value than the power itself. A ruler's strength wasn't determined by their true capabilities, but by how convincingly they projected strength. How you present yourself, your image, your reputation, your ability to control the way others perceive you is the game. And it's a game where authenticity becomes a luxury few can afford. It's unsettling, isn't it? The idea that your true self, your inner thoughts, your authentic desires are of little consequence in the battle for influence. The world doesn't care about your authenticity, it cares about your performance. The mask you wear matters far more than the face behind it. Powerful people don't just act decisively, they appear to act decisively. They don't simply know what to do, they convince others they know what to do. And in this illusion, the real psychological toll begins. Living under the weight of this constant performance forces you to ask, how much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice to maintain control? How many times have you adjusted your words, your actions, your image, just to fit into a narrative that will serve you? How often have you shaped your reality, not to reflect who you truly are, but to shape the world around you? The tension grows as you realize, to climb the ladder, to navigate the complex webs of human interaction, to win, the need to appear competent, strong, and unwavering often outweighs the need to actually be those things. The struggle between authenticity and performance can tear you apart from the inside. On one hand, there's the desire to stay true to who you are, to act in ways that reflect your inner beliefs and values. But then there's the demand of the world around you, the world that won't give you respect or power unless you fit a certain image, unless you can convince others that you are decisive, competent, and above all, in control. Machiavelli would ask you to consider, is it worth the internal conflict? Is the trade-off between personal authenticity and external control worth it? Is this sacrifice the price of power or the path to destruction? Have you ever felt the suffocating pressure of the crowd? The weight of collective opinion bearing down on your every decision, forcing you to comply with norms, even when they run contrary to your beliefs? The truth is simple and harsh. The majority is often wrong. But in a world governed by groupthink, it doesn't matter if they're wrong. What matters is that the collective, the masses, the crowd wields the power to decide your fate. Machiavelli understood this power dynamic better than anyone. He observed how leaders, despite their intelligence or vision, could be swept away by the whims of the people. The masses, driven more by emotion and irrationality than by reason, create a dangerous force that can easily dismantle the structures of power. The people are rarely logical. They crave conformity over innovation, security over risk, and certainty over truth. In this environment, the individual becomes insignificant. To go against the grain is to court rejection, to risk being silenced, to become a pariah. The philosophical tension is undeniable. Is it worth it to go against the tide, to stay true to your personal vision, when doing so will almost certainly lead to ostracism? The world doesn't reward independent thinking, it punishes it. The masses have their own brand of justice, and it is brutal. Those who dare to challenge the status quo, who stand outside the comfort of groupthink, are often crushed under the weight of public opinion. The crowd will not hesitate to tear apart anyone who dares to be different, anyone who dares to think for themselves. But here's the deeper, more unsettling question. How much of your life is governed by the tyranny of the majority? How often have you found yourself silencing your own beliefs, your own desires, just to avoid the discomfort of being different? How often have you conformed not because you believe in the norm, but because the alternative is too risky, too isolating? This is where Machiavelli's insight becomes truly profound. Power isn't just about knowing what to do, it's about knowing when to do it. And sometimes that means going against the grain, ignoring the demands of the crowd, and making decisions that risk alienation. But here's the catch. To remain in power, you cannot afford to follow the masses. You must learn to manipulate them, to lead the crowd, and to make them believe that what you want is in their best interest. Machiavelli warns that those who rise to the top do so not by being liked, but by being feared or respected. The cost of challenging the majority is high. It means risking alienation, disapproval, and even failure. But the reward can be far greater. Control over your destiny, the power to shape the future, and the ability to rise above the collective stupidity of the masses. Fear. It's a feeling that we all know too well, isn't it? The tightness in your chest when you feel exposed, the racing heartbeat when you face something uncertain, the overwhelming dread of what might go wrong. We often think of fear as something to avoid, something that paralyzes us, stops us from acting, from reaching for what we desire. But what if, instead of avoiding fear, you could use it, harness its power to control, to influence, and to dominate? Machiavelli understood fear in a way that most never do. To him, fear was not a weakness, but a tool, a weapon that could shape not only how others acted, but how they thought. Fear, when applied correctly, becomes a mechanism of control, a way to maintain power over those around you. We often disguise it as caution, as a natural response to danger, or even as morality, convincing ourselves that we act out of respect for others' well-being or the greater good. But in truth, much of what we call caution is rooted in fear, and that fear is leveraged to manipulate the way people behave. Think about the leaders who have wielded fear to their advantage, men like Napoleon, Stalin, or Machiavelli's own political figures. These figures did not simply command respect, they instilled terror. When people are afraid of you, they will comply, not out of trust or loyalty, but because the consequences of defiance are too severe. Fear doesn't require a genuine bond of affection or respect. It requires only the threat of pain, humiliation, or loss. And that is enough. But there's a psychological cost to this. Fear, while powerful, is a double-edged sword. It can control, but it can also corrode. The more you use fear to manipulate others, the more you begin to feel its pull on you as well. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others. These fears can turn into chains, holding you back from reaching your true potential. The relationships you build through fear are fragile, superficial. They are based not on genuine connection, but on the unspoken threat of consequences. And this, inevitably, leads to isolation. The conflict here is profound. While fear can be a tool of control, it can also become a prison. The more you rely on it, the more it distorts the way you see the world. People become obstacles to be controlled, not allies to be nurtured. Your self-worth becomes entangled with how much fear you can instill in others. It's easy to lose sight of who you are when your every decision is driven by the fear of what might happen if you let go of control. Yet, Machiavelli teaches that fear is essential in the game of power. The question becomes, how much of your life is controlled by fear? How much of your ambition is driven by the fear of failure, of rejection, of not measuring up? How much of your success is built on a foundation of terror, both in yourself and in those you wish to dominate? The key is understanding how to use fear strategically, to apply it when necessary, and to recognize when it becomes overwhelming. Fear should not be your prison. It should be your weapon. It should never dominate your decisions or your self-worth, but it can guide your actions, shape your interactions, and carve a path to power if wielded with precision. Change. We're told it's inevitable. We're told it's necessary. We're told it's the key to progress, the solution to everything that's wrong with the world. Politicians promise it. Business leaders sell it. Even our closest friends claim they're going to change. But what if, beneath the surface, change is nothing more than a mask, a deception designed to maintain the very systems of power that we claim to be overthrowing? Machiavelli saw through this illusion with terrifying clarity. In his world, real reform was often just another form of control. Those who claimed to be bringing about change were not creating anything new. They were simply shifting the dynamics in a way that perpetuated their own dominance. Change, Machiavelli would argue, is not always about fixing problems or improving the world. It's about manipulating perceptions and maintaining power. Think about the leaders throughout history who have proclaimed reform only to establish new forms of tyranny. They promised freedom, but what they delivered was merely a different kind of oppression. Take the political revolutions we so often admire. How many times have they ended up in new rulers, simply replacing the old ones? The same systems of control, the same power structures, just wearing a different face. The promises of change were nothing but shadows, designed to appease the masses, to quiet their discontent, while the real architects of power continued to pull the strings. This is the sobering truth that Machiavelli wanted us to understand. True change is rare. Those who rise to power don't seek to revolutionize. They seek to manipulate the illusion of progress. They craft stories of reform to soothe the restless, to make them feel like something is different, when in fact, nothing has changed at all. People are desperate for progress. They want to believe that the world can be better, that their lives can improve. But the danger lies in believing that the appearance of change is enough. It's not. Think about the promises you've encountered in your own life. How many times have you been sold a vision of transformation, only to find that, in reality, things remain the same? The new job, the new relationship, the new philosophy that promises to change everything. How often do these promises of change end in disappointment, or worse, in a subtle shift that benefits someone else, leaving you the same person you were before? The emotional weight of this realization is heavy. Sometimes, nothing changes. And the power lies not in waiting for true reform, but in understanding how the illusion of change is used to maintain the status quo. Those who succeed are the ones who can see through the mask, who understand the mechanics of power beneath the surface. They know that the world doesn't change because people want it to. They change because others manipulate the hope of change to retain their control. The question you must ask yourself is this: are you being fooled by the illusion of progress? Are the changes you're chasing real, or are they simply new ways for someone else to keep you in line? Survival. It's a word we all know, one we often associate with physical danger, hunger, or desperation. But survival, in the truest sense of the word, is not just about staying alive. It's about winning, no matter the cost. It's about outlasting others, dominating the environment, and seizing power over your circumstances. In the world Machiavelli describes, survival isn't a passive experience. It's an active game, one in which the stakes are high, and only the coldest, most calculated players succeed. Imagine the world as a battlefield, not of armies, but of individuals, each one fighting for control, for influence, for power. In this game, the rules are simple. To win, you must abandon your attachment to anything that will slow you down, including your morals, your emotions, and your empathy. These things are nothing more than weaknesses, chains that keep you tethered to a reality where survival is uncertain, where personal ambition is at odds with the collective need for harmony or fairness. Machiavelli's brutal insight cuts deep. Survival requires detachment. In a world driven by ignorance, fear, and self-interest, those who thrive are the ones who can detach from their emotions and act ruthlessly. This means making choices that others would recoil from. It means abandoning the comforting belief in fairness, in kindness, in some inherent moral order. Because in this world, fairness isn't a given. It's something you take, and only if you're strong enough to enforce it. Kindness? It's a luxury the weak cannot afford. Compassion? It's a tool used to manipulate the naive. The psychological toll of this realization is immense. To accept that survival is a game, and that ethics are the first casualty of that game, is to confront the darkness of human nature. It's to acknowledge that, at some point, you may have to betray someone who once trusted you, or discard a relationship that once seemed irreplaceable, all for the sake of maintaining your power. This is the cold logic of survival. To thrive, you must be willing to see others as mere stepping stones in your journey, not as allies, not as friends, but as obstacles to be used, manipulated, or discarded when necessary. But how do you live with this truth? How do you reconcile the ruthless pursuit of power with the human desire for connection and trust? The conflict is real, and it's something that will challenge you at every turn. The more you embrace Machiavelli's teachings, the more you will see the fragility of your relationships, the illusion of loyalty, and the sheer weight of the choices you will have to make. This is the game of survival. To achieve your goals, you must separate yourself from your emotions, from the moral compass that has been ingrained in you. It's about seeing the world through a lens of cold calculation, understanding that, in this world, the strong survive, and the weak are simply left behind. The emotional complexity of this truth is unsettling. It forces you to ask, what are you willing to sacrifice to survive? Are you prepared to trade your soul for success, or will you allow your emotions and ethics to guide you to your own demise? In this game, there is no room for hesitation, no place for softness. There is only the cold, relentless logic of power. There's a question that every person seeking power must eventually face, whether they choose to admit it or not. What is the price of power? We often think of power as something to be desired, something that promises control, respect, and freedom. But what if the pursuit of power isn't the path to liberation, but the path to something much darker, much more isolating? Power comes with a cost, a heavy toll that few are prepared for. It's not just about the sacrifices you make, but the parts of yourself you lose in the process. The pursuit of control demands that you make choices that can alienate those who once mattered most. It means choosing ambition over affection, strategy over loyalty, and dominance over love. The more power you gain, the more alone you become. It's a paradox that most people ignore. Power isolates you. It removes you from the people who once helped you, who once saw you as a peer. You no longer walk alongside them, you stand above them, looking down from a cold, distant place. Machiavelli understood this dynamic well. He knew that ruthless ambition would always lead to a sacrifice. Every leader who climbed to the top, whether through cunning or brutality, had to shed something along the way. For some, it was innocence. For others, it was morality. And for the most unfortunate, it was their humanity. You don't rise to power without breaking things, without hurting others, without compromising your values. The deeper you go into the pursuit of control, the more you lose pieces of yourself. Those compromises stain your soul, leaving marks that never fade. What's even more chilling is that this price is often invisible at first. You may not see it as you push forward, driven by the intoxicating force of your ambition. But over time, as you stand atop your kingdom, whether it's a business, a political empire, or a social hierarchy, you realize something profound. The higher you climb, the more empty it feels. The more power you gain, the more you lose connection with what truly matters. You begin to question whether you're standing in a place of freedom or trapped in a golden cage, a prison of your own making. The tension grows with every step you take toward power. Is it worth it? Is the victory, the control, the admiration from others really worth the sacrifices you've made along the way? The choices you've had to make, the friends you've abandoned, the values you've compromised, the things you've done to protect your reign, are they worth the price of feeling isolated, resentful, and, in some deep, hidden part of yourself, empty? This is the moral toll of ambition. This is the weight of power, and it will force you to confront the ultimate question. Do you truly want power at all? Or have you been seduced by the idea of control, only to find yourself trapped in a system that destroys the very essence of who you are? The cost of power is profound, and it's not just about what you lose, but also about what you become in the process. The more you gain, the more you might lose sight of who you were before you started. So ask yourself, what price are you willing to pay? Is it worth the isolation, the moral compromises, the fear of losing yourself? Or will the pursuit of power ultimately destroy you from within?